Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 51. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us for this Wednesday show. Dave, we have a jam-packed episode today. We're talking Mike Tomlin. We're talking injury report. We're unfortunately talking about COVID, reviewing the Lions tie. I keep wanting to say loss because it feels like a loss to me, but the tie of that game and a lot else to discuss. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, a lot going on. Boy, draft season starting to feel like it's getting a little bit closer now. I found myself even deep diving into a wide receiver late yesterday because I have properly done my homework and gone through unfortunately, all 22 on both sides of the football. 3 times, I think now. It got so aggravated I had to put that down for a little bit there.
So bad you had to go watch college.
Yeah, the life I lead, right? Woe is me. And also got around to fully watching the 30-minute video that you produced last night that we'll talk a little bit more about in this episode. And that got me even madder. But it did give me some topics to ask you about for us to talk about today. On top of that, I've done a deep dive into the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat for heading into this week on both sides of the football differential. Maybe we'll talk about that. Talking a little bit about explosive plays. And yeah, you're right. We got a lot to get to today. So let's get after it.
Yeah, I saw that stat you posted, and we'll talk about it later, I'm sure, but it made me very sad to see where the Steelers are at, and not a place they want to be, midway through a season.
Absolutely not.
All right, Dave, let's start here with the injury report / COVID situation. Unfortunately, a lot of news here to discuss. Again, Ben Roethlisberger still in COVID protocol, I guess you could call it, and certainly could have a chance to play on Sunday, according to Mike Tomlin. But Tomlin said they are, the assumption they're working with going into this week is that Mason Rudolph will start because obviously Ben has yet to be cleared. Another player's been added to the reserve COVID list. That's Minka Fitzpatrick. That was announced. Was that announced Monday or Tuesday? I'm getting my days mixed up. Do you know what day that was?
I believe that would have been Monday, right?
Yeah, Monday, because Tomlin was yesterday. So Minka in protocol on Monday. There is, I guess, a chance that he could play, but Mike Tomlin said yesterday during his Tuesday press conference he does not anticipate Minka playing or being available to them on Sunday night against the Chargers. From an injury report standpoint, maybe not quite as bad as maybe we initially feared, although some reports, and based on what Tomlin said, are a little conflicting. Sounds like Chase Claypool is going to maybe practice to some degree this week and has a chance to come back. Mike Tomlin did not really rule out anybody, I don't believe, including Kevin Dotson, which is interesting because the report is he has a high ankle sprain, which normally keeps guys out for several weeks. So we'll see what happens there. And Tomlin also did not rule out T.J. Watt, and also seemed that Trey Turner, right guard Trey Turner, would likely come back for this Chargers game after leaving the Lions game with an ankle sprain. So I think I got everybody. I'm probably missing somebody there, but Minka, the big one there, being in that COVID protocol, and then basically Tomlin leaving the light on for all the injured guys.
Yeah, and it sounds like, if I had to guess, and that's very dangerous to do, Trey Turner, I would think, and Chase Claypool would probably be the most the highest side of questionable, meaning the most probable, I guess, when it comes to that. Boy, I don't know. I know you've watched the Kevin Dotson injury a few times. I know the great Dr. Mel has kind of or has written about it as well too. When he went off and the way he went off, and just knowing the nature and if it being a high ankle sprain, I think I'm going to be kind of surprised if he's up and running by Sunday night there. Now, he's a tough guy. He did try to tough through it initially until he just said, "Man, I can't do it here." Watt, I don't know what to think on that. Mike Tomlin said, "Look, this guy does, extraordinary things. Never count him out." But I believe the last time he said wasn't going to count him out, he ended up counting him out. I think he ended up being inactive with that groin injury there. So not sure what to think about that. I would put him more as probably Watt on the bottom side of the questionable, along with Dotson. Who does that leave us? With the COVID guys, who the heck knows, right? I mean, no sense even guessing on those guys. And Joe Hayden, I don't know. The middle part of the questionable, the 3 stages of questionable. Maybe that should be the title of my biography, right? I like the 3 stages of questionable. But yeah, I don't know where to put him. And as we've seen before, you can guess on Tuesday or Wednesday what this thing will look like, and you can get to Saturday night or Sunday morning and look a whole lot different there. But if I had to guess right now, I would say Claypool and Turner go. Who knows about Ben? Minkah, I would guess no. And I would guess no on Watt and Hayden and Dotson. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, it's some key names there for sure. Some of the most significant names on this team with Ben and Minkah and Watt and Hayden, offensive linemen. I mean, of all it's a who's who of injury report. I mean, I think maybe Hayden and Watt have a chance. I think they're kind of squarely on that questionable bubble. I don't think Dotson's going to play. I'd be very shocked if he played. I think Claypool and Turner are likely to play at this point. And the COVID guys, as you said, we'll wait and see. But we'll get our first practice report today. I'm sure a lot of guys won't be practicing or will be pretty limited of the names we just mentioned, but we'll have to see how the week goes later on.
I think there's going to be a lot of internet ink in my injury report post today.
Yeah, and again, from a COVID standpoint, I mean, you never know what other tests could come up here. Once 1 or 2 guys test, you always wonder, are there going to be more cases? And, we'll just have to wait and see on that. Obviously, you have 2, again, incredibly significant names there with Ben and Minkah. I think Ben's got a chance based on protocol. The way that Tomlin framed it didn't sound like there's a very good chance, but we'll see. I mean, we don't know if Fitzpatrick is symptomatic or not. We knew Ben was. We don't know what Fitzpatrick's status is. If he's asymptomatic, then there's a reasonable path for him to return in time for Sunday's game. Now he's going to miss basically the entire week of practice, and maybe we'll only get back Friday, Saturday at the earliest, but he would have a path to play against the Chargers. So, again, we'll just have to wait and see.
A lot of people are asking, do we know for sure if Minka Fitzpatrick is vaccinated? I don't know if we can say for sure. I think he is, but I mean, you get into and you can ask Tomlin. He's not at liberty to say that stuff either way. I'm not 100% though sure. I think Minka's vaccinated, but I don't know for sure.
Same. My understanding is that he is, but I don't feel confident in the way that I knew that Ben was vaccinated, because he had talked about it openly and said that he was, and he does a lot of interviews and doesn't wear the mask and all those things. So again, we'll just have to wait and see. And if Fitzpatrick is symptomatic, then even if he is vaxxed, that's going to make it harder for him to come back before Sunday's game.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of COVID, the Chargers having their own issues as well with Joey Bosa and Jerry Tillery, their top 2 defensive linemen, top 2 sack leaders, placed on the reserve COVID list yesterday. Reportedly, and again, nothing here is 100% concrete, but reportedly Joey Bosa is not vaccinated, which means he is not going to play, or very, very unlikely to play against the Chargers. So it sounds like both sides here are having some COVID issues to start players heading into this game.
Boy, who thought over a year ago we'd still be talking about the huge of impact that COVID's having on NFL games?
Yeah. Well, at this point, I'm surprised by nothing ever. So you just take it in stride.
Right.
So
that obviously is a huge loss for them. I mean, those 2 guys combined, I think have 8 of the team's 17 sacks. I think Tillery and Bosa. So I mean, this just isn't some ho hum backup player on the COVID list for them. This is 2 of their better defensive players that they are at least in Bosa's case, it's sounding for sure like they're not going to have. Don't know for sure about Tillery and all like that. But as big of loss as the Steelers, and potentially not having Roethlisberger and Watt and Minkah and Hayden. I mean, you take 2 pieces of their defensive line out there, and and really a defensive line that hasn't been, great. I don't think, at least in some of the early tape that I've looked at so far this season. I mean, that you really getting a couple of watered down teams there already.
Yeah, so no excuses for either side there because it sounds like both sides are going to deal with injury and the COVID-related stuff. So that's where it's at, and we'll hopefully provide an update on Friday. And again, we don't know what's going to happen here. These things usually come pretty quickly in terms of news and guys getting activated or not. So we're all just kind of waiting and seeing. But yeah, check out that post from Dr. Mel. I think she outlines what the protocol is well in kind of a very layman's terms for us to understand what we can expect and try to think about what's happening right now behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Mel, for that. And I think she's even provided a few updates and a couple other posts too, right?
She has. Yep, for sure. All right, Dave, Mike Tomlin spoke at his usual Tuesday, a very dapper Mike Tomlin yesterday, all dressed up for some reason. What were your takeaways from what he had to say in his press conference?
Oh, Lord, where do we start here? Let me pull up.
Well, I liked his assessment of Mason Rudolph. That was kind of the first thing that I gravitated towards in his just overall assessment of Rudolph's play.
All right. What did you like, not like, agree with, disagree with?
I just, I thought it was just a very candid answer overall. He said positives and negatives in this game, and I'll just kind of quickly go through some of what he said. Both, quote, he did a good job articulating the offense and communicating with guys the pace in which we desired to work. He was able to uphold. Talked about Rudolph's cadence and getting guys to jump a couple times and things like that. And then on the negative side, he said, quote, if I could be critical of him in any way, I thought he could have been better from a pinpoint accuracy standpoint in some instances to set up run after catch and putting the ball in an ideal circumstance. And I'm going to do a video breakdown of Rudolph here probably for tomorrow morning for Steelers Depot that talks about some of the good and bad from this game. But yeah, I felt like, again, the word I used on Monday's show, Dave, was composed with Mason Rudolph. I thought he was composed. I thought from a baseline standpoint, he ran the offense well, got in and out of the huddle. Again, they worked pace. They didn't have any big miscommunication issues, it didn't seem like. So I just thought from a fundamental standpoint about running the show, I thought Mason did do a good job.
As far as the pinpoint accuracy goes, yeah. I mean, he obviously had some throws, even some that he completed that I think would have given some players some better opportunities after the catch to maybe to get a few more yards there if you hit them more in stride as opposed to having them reach behind them kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I think the accuracy, still to me it really goes down to three huge misses by Mason Rudolph in this game. I think one obviously was the overthrow to Kalen Ballage. That ended up being intercepted. No, I don't know if he was, I don't know. I don't know any other way to explain that other than just, now there was some pressure, a little bit of pressure on there, but that's got to be completed, I think. And I think it was just a bad throw that got away from the cell and was intercepted there. That was, anytime you turn over the football in a game is bad. I do think sometimes there needs to be an interception stat for not a quarterback, for a wide receiver or for an eligible, but that definitely would not have gone. That would have been on Mason Rudolph's column there, not that. So that was a big play in the game. Anytime you have a turnover, especially in the end of the opponent's side of the field there, you cannot look away from that. The second one, the Mr. Ray McLeod into the ground. That's become an interesting topic now. I think since the All-22. And look, folks, it's easy for us to. And, Alex does this right after the game. Alex produces like a 6 or 7 minute video where he gives his overview thoughts. Why? Because people demand instant reaction. All right, they want as quick of a reaction as they can before the game gets away for them, or they get on with their lives and work week and all like that. So I think Alex does a great job, but I think even Alex will tell you, man, you can watch that TV tape, the live time, and then one time quickly thereafter, and you still not see everything that happened, and that makes it hard to give confirmed analysis on a good 80% of what happened in the plays there. Now, since we've done that, and since really, the last, I guess, 24 hours or so, and I think Matthew wrote about this on the site yesterday. Merrill Hodge, and a lot of people respect Merrill Hodge and his analysis more so than they do us, because obviously we have the brand on us, Alex, that we've never played football before. or at least not college or pro in my sense there.
Well, I'm going to be in the XFL too. I'm coming. I'm coming back.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to be out there. No, I'm not going.
I bet you would time I imagine you'd still time pretty decently. You'd time a lot better than I would. But
okay, well, that's a low bar.
But when it comes to Merrill Hodge, a lot of people, I think respect, his play breakdowns. Now he seems to think that miss by Mason Rudolph to McLeod, about 6 yards or 7 yards away from him in the end zone there, whatever the distance was more on McLeod than it was on Mason Rudolph. Your thoughts on his breakdown of that play?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one because the Lions.
You don't see it. You don't get a good look at it really in the TV tape, but you really get a good look at it in the all 22.
Yeah, the Lions, as the Lions do, they blew the coverage. They just did not cover McLeod on that play. And initially, he's running a curl route 2 yards short of the end zone, and then he turns upfield. And so I wonder, is that a design double move, or did Rudolph think McLeod was just going to sit there because he was so open? Was McLeod trying to get in the end zone because he's so open? He just figures, I'm going to get an extra 2 yards here and try to sit down so I'm in the end zone when I catch the football. It's hard to say. I mean, what is the design of that route is the question that I have. Is that supposed to be like a little double move, or is that McLeod freelancing? I think Merrill's right to point all that stuff out, but I come away almost with more questions than answers watching that play.
I do as well too. The distance and as open, with nobody around, you would expect, regardless of what happened, that pass to probably be completed, I think. But I can see maybe where Merrill Hodge is coming in at. McLeod talked about just tons of miscommunications, right?
Well, he said on that play, for whatever it's worth, it was a very brief answer. He said it was not miscommunication, it was missed execution. I don't know if there's a difference there or not. I mean, I suppose that there is. But my question is, okay, is McLeod's route supposed to be that little stop and go? That's kind of what he ran. Is that the design route of the play? And I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. But he does move right as before as Rudolph is pulling the trigger. So the common sense aspect of it tells you, man, regardless of what happened, just drill that thing up higher and it gets to where it needs to go. Right. And the receiver makes the catch there. But what was your initial thought when you saw and read what Merrill Hodge had to say about that play?
Well, I just wanted to go back into the All-22 and see it myself and just kind of be able to thumb through it. And I mean, I get what he's saying. There definitely feels like there's miscommunication, but I wish I had more information, obviously, because if McLeod's route supposed to be just a curl and to sit there and then he breaks it upfield, that's probably on him for kind of abandoning his route a little bit. If it's something else, then we'd have to talk about it in those terms. But again, I just have a lot of questions there watching that play back.
All right. Regardless, though, it was a big miss in the game.
Yes.
Huge. Whoever you want to put it on, it was huge miss. I mean, it's top, in my opinion, it's top three for sure. The third one that I have is the later in the game that quick slant to Deontay Johnson, and there's a lot going on in that all 22 right there. And we had talked about it the other day on the podcast. And me saying, boy, I can't wait to get to the All-22. Now, I know since then we have done the live stream and talked a little bit about it, but maybe some people haven't listened to that live stream, but are picking us back up on the podcast again. And what are your thoughts on that play now that you've seen it from several different angles? Mm-hmm. The one that it looks like Rudolph just rocketed it off target. Deontay sticks the arm up, goes off the hand there, and incomplete, and that wound up, looking at the tape, it ended up being a huge incompletion because of it looking like Deontay Johnson could have had probably a good 30 yards on that one.
Yeah, that was a third down. They had the punt. The reason why the pass is out in front, as you had mentioned on Monday, was because Johnson slowed up on the route. To me, the question is, should he have done that or not? And I get the sense that he probably shouldn't have, but I don't know that to be 100% fact. So I think it's fair to sit there and kind of blame both guys from our outsider point of view, but I think from an internal team standpoint, one of those guys is wrong. Either Johnson was right to slow up his route and Rudolph missed a little bit, or Johnson should have kept running his route and Rudolph was fine. So I think There's only probably one guy to blame there. I just don't know exactly who, but I'm leaning towards blaming Johnson over Rudolph.
All right. Did Detroit have confusion on that play too in defense? Was that linebacker going over that crossed the face of Johnson, playing more man when he should have been playing zone? And did maybe Mason read it as that maybe being some man, and Johnson read it as zone? Could there have been a miscommunication there? Why is that linebacker crossing face there?
As the underneath defender crossing Johnson's face?
Right, when the other side's zoning off, or is he just reading eyes or what?
I mean, he's expanding there on the flat, and maybe he was reading Rudolph's eyes there a little bit as well. To me, the question of whether or not Johnson should have slowed down or not is how close is that next defender or that next window or not. And as you said, I think on Monday that linebacker's kind of got his back turned, so there is room for Johnson to continue running. It's not like he's going to get popped if he doesn't settle down there the way that he did. So I think there may have been miscommunication there. That's part of the course with Detroit, but I'm less focused on that aspect and more focused on the next window defender, which kind of determines whether or not Johnson slows down his route.
And that next middle of the field defender, you talk about the linebacker on the other side that had his back turned, that was walling off, right?
Right.
All right. Now that he's starting to turn around there, but he's still a good 15 yards away from Johnson. So and the thing is that the angle that Johnson's kind of eased up and breaking off his route to would put him more in line to taking a pop from that guy instead of running to the open space at the original slant angle, right? To me, if he read that properly and read it the way Rudolph thought he was going to read it, if he stays on the proper angle, he runs more to open space. Because even that deep safety is well away from that at that point. In fact,
he's not going to get popped whether or not he slows down or not. No, there's no one that's about to hit him.
Okay. All right. Well, I was given the benefit of doubt there, so you're taking that away from him. Okay. So if that's the case, why not run to open space? And then at that point, then it becomes a one-on-one with the safety once you make the catch on the run.
Right. Which is why I think I'm leaning towards that being more on Deontay. But really what it could come back to an extent, is just kind of lack of reps. I mean, Obviously I know Rudolph worked, Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesday was reportedly more of a walkthrough, but when those guys just generally haven't worked as much, I imagine Mason Rudolph not always throwing a ton of passes to Deontay. I get Mason works on Wednesdays typically, so there's obviously some, relationship there, but whenever you just, whenever you're a late announced starter and stuff like that, those little nuances like Johnson knowing how to, clear the window and is he going to slow down or not, that's where miscommunication can happen. That's when you see the miss to McLeod, for example, when you don't always quite get that work the way that you normally do. So I think that's maybe what you chalk it up to.
Well, here's the thing. Whoever you want to put that on, there's different points in this game where you went, well, that could have been the game-winning play, That, I think, could have been the game-winning play right there, and they didn't get it. So, once again, that's a huge miss. To me, that's the top three misses in here. Now, it'd be interesting because there are other aspects that Mike Tomlin talks about, pinpoint accuracy with Mason Rudolph, that you just can't go to that one play and say that's the play. So the fact that there was more plays where there were pinpoint accuracy issues gives credence to Mike Tomlin saying there were pinpoint accuracy issues for sure. Now, whether or not that particular play that we just broke down was one of them or not, I don't know.
Well, he was talking about run after catch stuff, so I think he was largely speaking about completions, passes, because I have probably four examples of what Tomlin's referring to that I'll talk about, of him just throwing behind guys and they have to reach back and they can't turn upfield as smoothly to try to get yak.
Okay, so when you contextualize his comments of pinpoint accuracy and after the catch as being completed passes and not incompleted passes.
By and large, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But to your point about how important that miss was, just watch the reaction of the teammates. Watch Ray, watch J.C. Hassenauer, hands over his helmet, like, oh, we just missed that play. That should have been a completion. They all knew how big that play was or was not.
And you don't get the sense of that on the TV angle, do you?
Yep.
But boy, you see it on the all-22. I think I even put my hands over. I think I surrender Cobra, I guess I called it the surrender Cobra or whatnot. But yeah, that ended up being. Any other misses worse than those three from Rudolph?
Well, I still am baffled by that 3rd and 25 lame duck throw to Pat and 4 guys area. I mean, I don't know what Rudolph was trying to do on that play. That's the play that I think just baffles me the most.
All right, but I mean, as far as playing a part in win and loss of the game, though, I mean, okay, if you complete that, what do you? It becomes I guess that's more the risk reward column, right?
Well, it should have been intercepted. I mean, that guy just dropped it. I mean, he picks that ball off. Detroit probably wins that game because they're going to be deep in Pittsburgh territory,
right,
at least on the right side of the field.
But you know what they call almost incompletions, right?
Sure, but I'm talking about process there. I mean, I don't
sure.
care about as a quarterback, I don't care about the outcome. If the guy, if you throw a bad ball and it gets dropped, that's still a bad ball by the quarterback. We got to fix that kind of stuff. I don't care if he drops it or houses it.
Sure, but does that register top 3 misses of that game? And once again, there are a good 6 misses in that game. One over to the sideline, high to Deontay, that should have been an easy pitch and catch there. Can add to the 6. Once again, there is a good 6 throws that Mason that you think to yourself, why the hell didn't he complete that pass? You know,
I don't know if it was the most egregious play in terms of the outcome of the game. It probably wasn't, but it was to me the worst decision that he made. Which, when it comes to a quarterback, all I care about is decision making. That's the number one trait you got to have.
All right, they left the win out there on the field for sure. You know, and the Lions did too. I mean, they missed a couple. So
and that's how you get a tie. Usually you get tied because both teams just don't want to win the game. I will say, just watching the tape again, I don't think Rudolph played well, but I think he played a bit better than I thought watching it live. I do want to point that out. I think he was better than my initial reaction.
I mean, so in other words, you're instead of the D+, you're firm in that C- now.
Yeah, I'm more in that C to C- than like the D+ I was. So I mean, it's not a big jump, but I do want to at least, because obviously I'm pretty critical of Rudolph, but especially given the circumstances, I do think he played better than my initial reaction.
I think it's C- all the way. I mean, okay. And I'm interested to see. I have a feeling I know about four of the clips that you're going to put up there on the run after catch type situation. So yeah, I mean, I think Tomlin. Do you think Tomlin is just praising to overpraise, or do you think Tomlin is sincere in his thoughts of where he's at with Mason Rudolph right now?
No, I think he's sincere. I think he's generally sincere whenever he says this kind of stuff. So nothing that leads me to believe he's being insincere about it.
I like this comment about Mason Rudolph and the 4-4 and how, you know, and look, we went into this thing knowing really that the game plan wasn't going to change too terribly much once the word came down that Ben wasn't going to play. Now there might be a couple of red lines that went through a couple of plays that maybe Mason doesn't like to run, and maybe a couple of things got added in that Mason's comfortable with running. But I went into it thinking there's not going to be that much difference in this offense overall because of who the quarterback is, and I came out of that kind of feeling the same thing. In fact, there might have been a couple more deep shots in this game than maybe Ben might have taken.
Yeah, but by and large, the offense was virtually the same.
Stagnant.
Yeah, well, that as well. I do want to note, not the backtrack here, but since we had talked about COVID and masks and all that, according to Tom Pelissero, tweeted this out about 20 minutes ago, the NFL is going to implement a mandatory masking mandate from Thanksgiving the 25th through December 1st for all players and staff, regardless of vaccination status. So, just as a heads up to Steelers fans, whenever that time comes, you're going to see guys wearing masks. That's going to be around the league, apparently, there to try to curb any sort of spread during the holidays.
Well, I sure am glad I am a recluse. How about you?
Yeah, really, the pandemic hasn't changed our life too much. It's kind of been like, all right, no change in schedule. But no, it's obviously serious.
Yeah, it is serious for sure. And I'd be so glad when we get out of a world where we're, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but be sure nice to, is there ever going to be a normal again? You know,
right.
makes you kind of wonder at times. So, all right, moving forward. What else did
Jumping
Tomlin
back
say?
to the Tomlin press conference, I thought it was interesting. He opened up the presser. The first thing he said was talking about wanting to get more splash plays from special teams from the return game. Remember, McLeod had 6 punt returns, average a respectable 9 yards per return, but didn't ever break one. A big return, the way the Lions had a big 48-yard punt return. So that was interesting for Tomlin to note the lack of splash there as the first thing to talk about.
Right out the chute, too. What did Danny Smith take his sandwich out of the refrigerator and take his leftover pizza out of the office refrigerator there? Look, I mean, there's a lot of reasons you can point to why the Steelers lost this game, and make no mistake about it, it was a loss. They just get the benefit of the tie for some reason. But the last thing I kind of thought was, man, if only the special teams units would have popped one or created a turnover and all like that. I was caught by surprise that Mike Tomlin wanted to open up with that.
I was too. Not that I don't think he's necessarily wrong about it, but of the checklist of things, and I don't know if he's putting that number one, if that was the first thing that came to mind or what, but I get that. I mean, you want to get splashed there, and you had some chances too, and that's a unit thing. That's not just on McLeod. That's a blocking execution kind of thing. But yeah, I thought that was interesting the way that he opened up the presser that way.
All right, what'd you think about this? This is going to turn into a weird, probably rabbit hole here. But he says, particularly, let's see, I thought our tackling at times was below the line, but also you got to tip your cap to the Lions in terms of some of the things that they did, particularly as it pertains to the running game. Now looking back at it, we now have information that Coach Dan Campbell was calling plays, and that created an unsteady environment relative to what we had planned for and anticipated. They got some third down runs and things of that nature that got us off balance in terms of the people and the personnel groups that we deploy on third down. They extended some drives and so probably made the run game element of it look uglier than maybe it was. But there was enough ugliness on the tape in terms of missed tackles and explosion runs that needs to have our attention as we go back to work this week. All right. We talked about this a little bit and how the heaviness, how Detroit did a lot of heavy, a lot of tackle eligible and stuff like that. Since then, you have done a fantastic video. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And I know it was a little bit longer than what you normally like to do these videos on. But if people really want to understand why the Steelers had issues really from the second quarter until I guess right at the end of or around the third quarter there, why the Steelers had issues with the Lions running game, that video will definitely tell it all there. And I'll kind of let you give the cliff notes on it there, Alex. But in a nutshell, as far as Oscars and all go and all like that, I mean, for football short, category, 30 minutes to 45 minute category, I think, and the Oscar goes to
Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt won it.
Watch a deep dive into Pittsburgh's run defense issues and how they fixed them. Alex Kozora, Steelers Depot.
Mm-hmm. Directed by Quentin Tarantino, so we appreciate it.
Directed by Alex Kozora, scored by Alex Kozora, yes. Narration by Alex Kozora, associate producer Dave Bryan.
Tried to get Morgan Freeman for the narration. He would have done a better job. Was not available for comment.
No, but in all seriousness, it's and I know a lot of people don't take the average fan probably not going to take the time to watch a 30-minute video on this. But if you want to know what happened, why it happened, how it was fixed, I mean, there's no better video than this. So and you've done a lot of videos. You've done obviously a lot of great work for the site. But I found myself just enthralled. I finally got around to watching all 30 minutes of it last night. And I was even learning a few things. So with that, the floor is yours. Why don't you kind of cliff note it there?
Yeah, I would. If you have some time, it's easier to watch it with the play shown and laid out than me trying to explain it in podcast form. And you're right. I mean, I understand it's a very niche layered, nuanced thing in a week where we're talking about Dwayne Haskins' warm-up throws and Joe Scherbert's practice comments. This is not exactly a sexy storyline to talk about the Steelers over front. But bottom line is the Lions were running a ton of 13 personnel, 3 tight ends, and one of those tight ends being a tackle eligible, Matt Nelson, number 67, before he got hurt in that game. And they were shifting those guys over. So they would line up one side and they would motion the tight end and the tackle eligible across to the other side. And Pittsburgh just overall had a really tough time communicating and adjusting their front and being gap sound there. So bottom line is the stats on this. Detroit's 13 personnel in the first through third quarter. They had 16 carries for 175 yards, 10.7 yards per carry, 56% run success rate. In the fourth quarter and overtime, Detroit running out of 13 personnel, 6 carries for -6 yards, -1 yards per carry, and none of those runs were successful. So by the fourth quarter and overtime, Pittsburgh did a better job of flipping their front, of adjusting to that tackle motion better. It's frustrating that it took that long. That's one thing certainly worth noting. But in the video, we talk about how Pittsburgh struggled to communicate and be gap sound against that motion, and how they finally did a better job of that by doing things like having Kim Hayward follow the motion and literally flipping basically the defense instead of just trying to shift and play down a gap. So again, watching the video probably will do a much better service of explaining and showing some of these things. But yeah, a big difference between the run defense issues in that first and third quarter and then how it got fixed. So it's good that it got fixed, but it's frustrating it took that long and that much damage to get fixed.
Now, just so everybody knows, as what we do as far as process with our guys every week, we try to provide the guys with at least two previous games of the opponent the Steelers are playing, the all 22 versions of that. I watch it. Alex watches it. All the guys, Josh Carney watches it. Tom Mead. We got a lot of guys looking at this stuff, So, and generally, what happens, one of us might see something that the other one doesn't see, or 3 of us might see something that one other one doesn't see, type thing. There was a little bit of this on tape, but it wasn't all over the tape with the Lions, right?
Right. Yeah, a little bit of that. Not something I noted. I don't know if Josh noted it in his report or not. One issue for that is because the Lions were always behind in games. When you're down, 44-6, like you were against Philadelphia, you're not running tackle eligible 13 personnel. You're throwing the football. So, they've played a couple close games this season. They've had some heartbreaking losses, but by and large, they've not had leads at halftime, or they've been trailing at halftime, and so they've not had the luxury of playing really close competitive games start to finish. Of course, as expected, being now an 0-8-1 team. So, and then coming out of the bye week as well, Dan Campbell calling plays. There was a different set of circumstances there that I think caught Pittsburgh off guard.
All right. Now, and once again, I didn't see a lot of that at all, on the previous 2 games of tape that I watched for them. Now, here's something else that's an interesting aspect to all this. And whether or not it's a big deal, maybe is it something maybe the NFL needs to look at? I don't know. Obviously, you're going to have bye weeks. You're going to have teams coming off bye weeks playing teams that did not have a bye week the previous week. I get all that. But how much even more the Lions were coming off of a bye week and the Steelers were on a short week. That brewed up the perfect storm for Dan Campbell to do and their offense to scheme up what they did. It was brilliant, quite honest with you. Because I think you have even noted in the past how the Steelers have at times struggled with that overfront, right?
Well, that overfront's been really successful for them, but my thought was, I wonder when teams are going to weaponize that against them and run away from the overfront or shift away from it, and no team has really done that before, but Detroit finally did. Another factor to consider of why this was due and caught Pittsburgh off guard, remember, the Lions got back Taylor Decker in this game, so they had their tackles healthy, and so that 67, Matt Nelson, was their starting tackle before Decker got back, and he got put in that 6 offensive lineman role. So they got healthier too, and that probably helped them and gave them more flexibility. He actually got hurt in that game. They had to put in a backup, Will Holden, to be that extra 7th offensive lineman essentially. But so that you're right. It was a perfect storm of issues that I think caught Pittsburgh off guard.
And not that excuses anything, but kudos to the Lions for using their time and to really change identity. And you're doing it with a play caller too, and Dan Campbell, doing that. I mean, props to them for doing that and having the time to figure that out. What has you more perplexed? Them having the ability to do that, or I guess how long it took the Steelers to adjust to it throughout the game?
Yeah, I think it's the latter, about how long it took Pittsburgh to adjust to it, because they did adjust to it. So it wasn't even something like it was so monumentally tough for them to figure out that they couldn't deal with it in game. They did deal with it. It just took them until after Detroit ran for like 220 yards in this game. So maybe even more than that. So that's the frustrating part, is that it took until the start of the fourth quarter when Detroit had run all over him for this thing to finally get addressed.
Now, after watching that later last night, I got even more mad because my mind went to, man, what a brilliant kudos to the Lions, for doing that. Why the heck don't we see the Steelers offensively, do something that catches the out of character, that catches the opposition by surprise, such as that? If a 0-8 team can do something that just perplexes the Steelers for two quarters, why can't we see the Steelers offense ever do that where we go, oh man, they're just railroading this team, and they didn't see it coming.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess when you're 0-8, you're more desperate, and so you're more rolling to try whatever. I'm sure they've not usually felt this good about their game plan in any other game this season. So it's a fair question, but maybe part of that is the desperation of being an 0-8 team, just trying to, willing to try anything.
Well, let me tell you, the Steelers, this is the most desperate 5-3-1 team I've ever seen in the history of the NFL right now in the form of the Steelers. But kudos to you. That was very, very, very well done. I thought you even bringing up the aspect that they lost that extra player, I guess, to injury, shaped it a little bit there towards later in the game too, right?
Yeah, I think Holden, the backup, did not do as good of a job. I think they called for a holding call as well on one play as the starter Nelson did. And we should mention the Steelers also changed their personnel grouping. They were going into their 3-4 big package with three safeties, with Killebrew replacing a corner, replacing James Pierre. So I don't think that had a big impact on the reason why Pittsburgh stopped things. But we should note they did change their personnel grouping. So that was the first adjustment they made. It still didn't work, and then they made further adjustments about changing the front and really respecting and following that motion more than they had been in the first three quarters.
And I think another thing that was just real, one of the things that got me an aha moment while watching that as well too was why the hell are you playing cover 2 with one wide receiver?
All right. Yeah, that was a touchdown by Jefferson. They're playing a too high shell. I don't put Edmonds in the box, man.
I mean, how call time? I don't call timeout or something. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, there was just so much fundamentally just wow when you go back through it, and like you said, they finally got it fixed. But and once again, the defense only gave up 16 points, so there's a pat on the back, kick in the butt type situation in all this game, right?
Right.
Because 16, Keith Butler talks all the time. You keep the opponent 16 points running, you're gonna win. You're probably gonna win the game. Well, they did that. So it is a little bit of a pat on the back, kick in the butt there. It's just it's frustrating to see that an 0-8 team can come into the game and do some of the things that they did to this defense for the length of time that they did it.
Absolutely. So yeah, check out that video if you guys have a lunch break or something, I guess, because we take a really deep, thorough dive and go through, I think, 10 different plays from that game.
Good. Very, very good.
Thank you. Dave, I liked your article about Mike Tomlin not wanting to keep up with the Joneses, about not worrying about what the rest of the NFL is doing and just focusing on Pittsburgh issues, because right now they got plenty of those issues.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not all that deep at all. It just goes off what he had to say. And look, is there more parity in the league this year than ever before? I mean, you could probably say that. I mean, could you pick out the top 3 or top 4 teams that you guarantee 2 of those teams will end up in the Super Bowl? Probably. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. The best record's 2 losses, I think, right now. And you look at the AFC and all those teams that are still in the hunt right now. Anyway, Mike Tomlin doesn't care. So many aspects. You control what you do on a weekly basis, and you don't worry about anything else. And that's obviously the right attitude to have. There's 17 games in the season. If you win all 17 of them, it doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter what the other teams in the AFC do there as far as that goes. So I thought that was a classic kind of Tomlinism, if you will, when it came to Mike Tomlin basically being asked about parity in the NFL right now.
Right. Tomlin, a couple other things to note there from the presser, assuming that Minka Fitzpatrick cannot play Sunday. Again, Tomlin saying he does not anticipate Fitzpatrick playing, does not rule him out, but does not anticipate it. Says they'll probably use multiple options to replace Minka. In what form or fashion do you think those multiple options will be, and how will those guys be used?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I don't know if Carl Joseph is the guy that you want back there tied to the post a lot.
Yeah, I think he's part of those options, though. I think you have to use Norwood and Joseph, maybe even Killebrew to some extent to divvy up the labor.
I think you're right. I think you're going to see a whole lot of different things going on with this defense here, and maybe that'll help play into their if they do it right, maybe a sort of a tiny advantage, if you will, because I don't think you'll be able to count on 70% of the plays, a guy like Minka Fitzpatrick tied to the post kind of thing. So I think if you mix up your personnel correctly in this, now it will be interesting to see a guy like Norwood play a lot of snaps, maybe potentially as a post safety, right? Something that we really haven't seen since the preseason for obvious reasons. But that'll be different. I mean, a guy like Carl Joseph, best suited to play closer to the line of scrimmage. And then Terrell Edmonds, what's Terrell Edmonds' role going to be in all this? I have a feeling that what you might end up seeing is a more of a too high look for most of the game.
Okay.
In this is my initial thought on this. And then if you do have to roll type of situation, I think you'll kind of see him do it equally, more between guys like Norwood and Edmonds, where you might decide to roll either one of those guys down.
Would you agree that the guy that would probably replace Minka the most would be Norwood?
Yes.
So if you had to pick one name, yeah, I think so too. And so that's going to put Millette back on the field more, which probably puts him on Keenan Allen quite a bit in this game, because Norwood had passed up Millette last week. Millette barely played in that game, had 2 snaps, and Norwood had become the slot corner, and so now he might become your free safety. And so that's going to put Millette back on the field. Do you do something with Cam Sutton? Is there something you could do with him and play him at free safety? That they've done that in certain sub packages and dime packages in past years and even this year. But do you want to start moving him around as well?
I mean, I don't know. Are you going to tell me what Joe Hayden's status is for this game?
Good question.
That starts there. I thought James Pierre played an okay game coming in to suffer Joe Hayden there, and he had a couple of huge tackles in this game as well too. But what did you think about the play where he came down and undercut the puller there and ended up making a huge tackle on that play? Is that one of those no oh, good play? Because if he dives down like he did underneath that offensive lineman, and if he misses that tackle, that's giving up the edge there, right?
Yeah, you're right. That was a good pull by you to show that play. I think it's just a good play, though. I mean, you got to be. I want them to be the aggressor. I want them to come downhill and try to make a play and be confident in their ability to make a play. So I get if he misses there, it's bad. But to your point earlier, do you know what they call an almost missed tackle? They call that a tackle, and he made the play.
Right. I mean, is there some sort of chiding that goes on in the in the film room in that?
I really wouldn't, especially with the rules this year about taking on pullers. You can't go low on these guys. You basically just get your butt kicked as a cornerback because you have to just, stay on your feet. So I think you have to be super aggressive and come downhill and try to make a play there. So, I respect him for doing that.
Because if he misses that, that's people say, oh, well, Devin Bush is coming across. He'll clean that up. Okay, if you say so.
What do you think Pierre should have done? Just played more conservatively and just kind of backed off? And
you hear them say all the time, don't try to do too much. Do what you're supposed to do and let the cavalry come help there. It's 6 and 1/2 a dozen to the other, I think. It is. I view it as one of those. Oh no, oh, good play type situations
Yeah.
there. So, I mean, is it better to say whoa or sick 'em? You know, I guess there. But I mean,
Well, Mike Tomlin's philosophy. He'd
sure.
rather say whoa than sick 'em.
Right. So, I mean, but, what are we talking about? That thing gets to the outside for 22 yards, which it very could have. If you don't bring the back down in that situation, that's going for 20, I think.
No, I agree. If he does not make that tackle. But I think Pierre, I didn't know how good of a run defender Pierre was this year because I didn't know much about his game in that aspect at all. Without a preseason last year and, only playing in very few snaps in passing situations as a rookie. And I think what he's done against the run in camp, preseason, and the regular season has been impressive.
Well, I mean, he's willing. I mean, and I think we found that out kind of early, right? I mean, we want to know right off the bat, this guy going to be willing to stick his face in the fan. But
he's capable too, which is kind of the other part. I'm willing, but I can't do it. James Pierre is willing and capable of making the plays.
Yeah. How willing is Devin Bush right now?
Not as much as he should be. And my terrible take today is actually, I think there is, and I'm just speaking very broadly here about mostly
we are so good at transitioning this show sometimes, aren't we? Man. Well, is there an award for in the Oscar for best podcast? Go ahead.
It probably actually is more than the football short award you created earlier. I think there are best podcast awards. Well, we'll submit ourselves and see what happens. My terrible take today. Again, just broadly, I think there's been maybe a hyper focus on Devin Bush as if he's all the issues, and he's certainly not, but he is one of the issues for sure, and he is not playing well right now in any respect.
You have one clip in that video of yours of him backing away from contact there. There's another one down there near the goal line that I think I pointed out. Why isn't he attacking that hole? Why isn't he coming downhill? Why is he waiting for the tackle to come out and get him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got into a big debate about the one that I posted. Terrence Garvin, actually the former Steelers linebacker, we were going back and forth talking about that play. But I think overall...
Is that fraternity sticking up for fraternity, though? Basically, the linebacker fraternity what did he have to say about that?
Well, it is interesting because the line scheme is a little strange there. There's two pullers on that play. One goes wide to the outside and the tight end's going up through the hole. And so I think Garvin's point was Bush is getting his eyes pulled by that first initial puller going wide. My point is who cares about the puller wide? That's not your responsibility. Play downhill, secure your gap. And, if you're trying to do both things and try to play both pullers, you're playing neither. That's kind of what happened on that play. In that play is not solely on Bush's fault. There are a ton of other issues on that play. But anyway, I think overall to the point you're making, and this is not new to this year even for Devin Bush, he's got to be a more downhill aggressor type of linebacker.
And in all fairness, he wasn't that in college, right?
Yeah, I think it's fair, but I think it's worse. I mean, I think just fundamentally he's worse now than what he showed at Michigan.
Okay, is he? How much do you think him and that knee has to do with it at this point?
I don't know. I mean, only he knows the answer to that. He says it's not an issue. He says he doesn't think about the knee at all. I can't tell you what's in his head and heart and subconscious and things like that. But if he's healthy, he's practicing every day. He's been good since day one of camp, essentially. So I get that that's a grueling journey back and the stats about how long it takes to get back. But I can't use that as an excuse every single time when he's just doing routine. He's not even doing the routine things anymore.
And he certainly seems to be getting bodied a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, to me, there's regression from where he almost started this year. Like he's going backwards, and I don't know.
Fighting through stuff is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, just his play's gotten worse. It feels like. So you think it would get better over time. Further, you get away from the injury, get more confidence, and things like that. So again, for me, I want him to make splash plays, but he's got to start with doing the fundamentals better. And he's not doing the fundamentals right now, not tackling, not filling gaps, not doing his job. And until you do that, you're not going to be able to make those big plays.
It does feel like his play is going backwards right now.
Yeah, but again, I mean, the defense was a mess. I mean,
sure.
On Sunday, you could throw a dart at any of those guys, and they struggled. And I think it is fair to say when this D-line is young and they've struggled as well, it's not doing the linebackers any favors. When those guys are getting more bodies on them than they probably would like and would scheme it that way. So, and then Joe Schobert's playing better, but not by much. So, I mean, again, I don't want to put – it feels like every single time there's a bad play, everyone just runs to Devin Bush and just says, Bush sucks. And sometimes that's true. But there's a lot of other issues on this defense right now that go beyond Devin Bush.
All right, Mike Tomlin's comments on Kendrick Green.
Yeah, the question was I was literally answering the question as Tomlin right before Tomlin answered it, because the question was, does Rudolph and Green have to get on the same page with the snaps? And I'm like, Rudolph didn't do anything here. He's no page for Rudolph to get on here. Just got to snap the football right. And that was Tomlin's answer of there's no huddle, there's no adjustment, there's no meeting about snapping the football with Mason Rudolph. It's just snap the football better, and Kendrick Green has to do a better job of that.
Just be better, plain and simple. Yeah. For sure. Now, obviously, Marquise Pouncey had his struggles at times. He'd go through spurts where you didn't know where it was going when it came out from underneath his legs. Anything else that Mike Tomlin had to say that caught your eye there?
I think that was basically everything.
Talking about scheme and let's see RPOs. What did you think about his answer for trying to get Mason's words thrown at him? By one reporter.
I don't know. To be honest, it felt like Tomlin wasn't answering exactly the way the question was asked, but I wasn't 100% sure what the question was asking, so I think there were maybe some wires crossed there. Right. I mean, anyway, it was hard to get a read on there. But, yeah, let's move on here, Dave. Let's talk about the all 22 from this Lions game. We've talked about it a good bit already in referring to the Tomlin's comments. Let's look at the Steelers' offense. Anything from the all 22 you saw, positive or negative, in this game?
From the offensive all 22 aspect, you're saying?
Yeah.
From offense only?
Yeah, well, I mean, anything, I guess, but I was just kind of giving direction with the Steelers' offense. Anything you want to talk about all 22 wise?
I mean, I thought they did what they needed to do as far as running the football and having some success in there. I think it goes back to, I think you highlighted this, in that red zone trip there. Why they wanted to decide to pass those three times in a row there. That was one of the biggest takeaways there. I mean, once again, I'm giving up talking about the middle of the field developing past the line of scrimmage type stuff. I mean, I think that's useless to talk about at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. On that red zone trip, that first down, that RPO, Tomlin said they had 6 defensive linemen in the game. Isn't that what he said post game?
I don't remember. Did he?
I think he did. They did not. They brought the linebackers down, so I guess in that sense it was kind of a 6-man front. It was actually blocked really well. Pittsburgh had the numbers to block that one. I think Rudolph should have given the football to Harris. I know hindsight's 20/20, but I think Rudolph made a bad read there.
Okay. I'll have to go back.
Kind of got the whole series off to a bad start.
All right, I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah. Overall, I thought Najee Harris ran really hard. And I think you pointed out some clips as well. You're seeing more agility, more lateral movement, making guys miss as opposed to running through him with Najee Harris. And I think maybe it's just a sign of his comfort and confidence in this offense.
Look, you could definitely tell some of those bag drills coming into focus there, right? When you look at some of that jump cuts of his and all. Hey, he is as advertised though. I mean, he is a big guy, but he can run with power and he can get you some yards after contact. And I think we saw that for sure.
Yeah, so I think you're seeing his game evolve. His pass pro in this game was excellent. I think super underrated part of his game right now, at least in that game against Detroit, because the Lions were bringing heavy linebacker blitzes and they're running games and stuff. About Harris, from a recognition and execution standpoint, he was fantastic.
Absolutely.
Anything else, anything defensively that you saw? I mean, again, we talked about that quite a bit there with some of the run defense issues, but anything else that you want to mention?
Just that they probably could have done a better job they should have been beaten early on that deep one from Goff, right? If you have a quarterback that could have thrown the football, I mean, Joe Hayden was beat on that. Was that another one of those kind of maybe zombie dive down type? Was that type of situation there where they were going, getting beat deep against kind of a cover 3 look?
No, it wasn't a zombie call because it wasn't the Yankee concept where they zombie and pass those things off. But Minkah got held to the other side there. Goff kind of moved him and held him with his eyes, and maybe Minkah should have gotten depth there, but Joe Hayden just got beat, and you just kind of feel like, he's a veteran guy who has the veteran tricks of the trade and all that, but speed is speed, and he's losing that speed. And so, he's still playing, I think, pretty well this year, but you can definitely feel like, his speed's he's lost a couple of gears.
It really does seem that way with him. And there was one other instance, I think maybe in overtime there, where I don't know why Goff came off of the look there, but it's over to the left side, and it was an out and up by, I think, Hawkinson there. And I think with Devin Bush over on that side there, if he stays on that, I think they hit that, and that might be the ball game right there.
Did you post that play? I can't remember that play in particular right now.
Yes, I did. I posted that last night.
Okay, I'll have to go back and check. But so did someone blow a coverage, or did someone just get fooled on the double move, or what?
It just feels like it was a good play call against the defense there, but it also looks like maybe Bush did get lost his man for a little bit there. I'm gonna DM this to you real quick for you to see.
Okay, I think you just sent it over. This was in overtime?
I believe it was.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff was a mess in this game. They had no trust in his ability to throw the football at all. And, yeah, he bails on a clean pocket and throws the football away. So, I mean, that just kind of sums up the day they had trying to throw the football.
Okay. Let's see. I mean, you pointed out a lot of this stuff defensively that needed addressing. Yeah,
again, it really was run defense. Like, pass defense wasn't a big issue because Detroit barely threw the ball and didn't do it successfully. So, and the one time they did was that deep ball to Raymond that was underthrown, and Hayden was able to rally and break the pass up. So I think we kind of covered the All-22 pretty well, just kind of talking about Tomlin stuff in our brief review right there. But what do you think about Dan Moore this year? Any of your thoughts changed on Dan Moore's play at all?
Just that he's very, very inconsistent overall. The feet don't match up with the hands all the time.
Yeah, I think he definitely struggles with everything sometimes, but power rushes, bull rushes give him, I think, the most trouble right now. He tries to flash his hands. He'll try to punch, to fake his punch early, and I think that kind of screws up his hand placement when he tries to reset and repunch. And so I think we got to talk about him a bit more in terms of the struggles, and some of that's expected. Obviously, it's a tough position to play, being a rookie left tackle in the situation that he's in. Joe Haig, I thought, did a good job. Again, I'm impressed with Joe Haig. Probably not playing guard in 2 years and coming in and doing a good job. Although there was some miscommunication whenever those backup linemen came in the game. There was one play where it was totally miscommunicated and ended up in a, I think, loss for Harris. And there were still some ugly moments there with backup linemen in the game.
Absolutely.
If assuming Turner plays Sunday and assuming Dotson does not play, who do you start at left guard?
I keep it the way they had it the other day. I play Hassenauer at left guard, and what was he at? Is Finney active or no?
Let's assume Finney's available. Sure.
That's a great question. Yeah, Finney's been a better left guard in the past, though, than he's been anything else. So I'd be more apt, I think, if Finney's active. I think I'd be more apt to put Finney at left guard, and then who play? I guess Hassenauer at right guard then.
Well, let's assume Turner is playing.
Okay, well then, yeah, that's. I think if Finney's healthy, I would like to see him maybe start at left guard, to be honest with you.
I'd put Haig there. I think Haig's the best man for the job. If he gets a full week of practice in, which I assume he'd be able to do, I think he's the biggest, strongest, best run blocker of the lot. That's what I would do.
Okay. It's an interesting question because they obviously don't look like they have a lot of confidence in Finney right now for whatever reason. Why was he scratched the other day?
Yeah, do we know that to be a healthy scratch? Maybe today's injury report will tell us something, but it was interesting to see that Finney was inactive.
I don't think we know. I mean, we'll see what the injury report says and see if he's listed back with that back today or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And then Zach Banner not playing. I wonder, was there a plan for Banner to play in some capacity or not?
three special team snaps doesn't speak to much of it there, and that's what got me kind of scratching my head. I think we talked about the other day. There was, okay, were you going to do something with him as a tackle eligible or something like that? Because that never surfaced. And it could have, and it's not like the game was ever, you could have if that's the way you wanted to do it.
Because there is no real reason to dress 4 tackles and only 1 interior offensive lineman in that game, unless Finney was actually hurt and could not play. So hard to say, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, Dave, any other thoughts here from this game or Tomlin's comments or anyone else's comments here about anything over the last 48 hours?
No, I think we've ate it up pretty good there overall. You knew you'd start seeing some more stuff in the All-22, and we did.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get to some reader emails here and close out today's show.
All right, let's do it here. Hold on a minute.
Oh, by the way, Le'Veon Bell got released by the Ravens yesterday. So you were wondering about Bell's career. I think his career's done. I don't know if he's going to play again for another NFL team.
Yeah, you might. I was asked that yesterday on my interview with Dave Weekly and all, and I thought, never say never because you never know what injuries around the league are going to do, and especially at the running back position there. But that might be it for him.
Yeah, 2.7 yards a pop in a Ravens offense. It's run heavy, run centric, and you can't cut it there. And you're about to turn 30 in February. I think you're about done. Maybe he gets signed somewhere, but I don't know if he'd ever has an NFL carry again, to be honest with you.
Well, you might be right there for sure.
All right, what does the email machine have to say?
Let's look real quick here. I think we got a lot of Bush questions in here. Jelani writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, hope all is well. Devin Bush certainly has not played well this season as he did the past couple of years, missing assignments and over pursuing on runs and missing tackles. How much do you attribute his play to the losses of Alu and Tuitt? Bush is the type of linebacker that needs to be kept clean with good defensive linemen in front of him, so offensive linemen are not getting to the second level and washing them out of the play, similar to how Shazier was when he played. Let me know your guys' thoughts, and thanks as always.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. I mentioned that earlier, but that does not mean you get to absolve Bush of a missed tackle in space, for example. That's nothing to do with defensive lineman play or lack thereof, or whenever he's backing out of a hole, taking on a puller, nothing to do with defensive lineman or lack thereof. So I think it's a part of it that should be noted, but that can't be the whole evaluation where you say, well, you just can't talk about the guy because the D-line isn't playing great. Again, the issues go deeper than that.
I certainly do agree with that. Look, this isn't a team that's two gaps, right?
Right. Yeah. The nature of the defense has changed. So, I mean, by design, even when the guys are healthy, those linebackers are going to take on blockers more often because it's not the old school 2-gap, free up the linebackers kind of system.
All right. I have a feeling we're going to have a few more questions in here as well, too. I thought I saw about Devin Bush. Let me find out. Resort this.
I'm guessing there's.
Let's see. R. Johnstone writes in, hi, Dave and Alex. I'm not a Bush hater and generally cut a little slack for a player for first year back from major surgery. But I don't watch all 22, but I do look hard giving the back button a workout on the TV tape. On 3 plays in the Lions game, including a long touchdown run, I see Devin Bush put his head on the wrong side behind the runner and try to grab by the waist or shoulders as he runs by. Head in front. Is as basic as it gets. And on these plays, Bush looks like a player not eager for contact, which might be tolerated in a free safety or cover corner, but not a linebacker. A linebacker who doesn't like to bang will never be very good. The S word came out into my mind. Soft. Am I wrong? Roger Johnstone.
What do you commit on that, Dave?
He's not playing with the same intensity that he was prior to the injury. That's where I come down on it with him. I don't know if he's lost, I don't know, some will in there or what, but not the same intensity for whatever reason is where I am right now on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just always tough for me to say that a guy isn't playing with great effort or playing soft because that's just a really big, dangerous claim, but obviously he's not playing like he should be or is capable of playing, and that's a big concern. So, I mean, it's always tough for me to say that S word, that soft word or lack of effort and stuff like that, because I think he is trying. I mean, again, this guy had a heck of a road back from that torn ACL. I don't think we talk about that stuff enough, how tough that was during COVID and being a 23-year-old, pretty isolated and things like that. But yeah, I mean, the guy is not playing well.
No, he's not. And he's really got to turn it on in these final 8 games, for several reasons. And if he wants his 5th-year option picked up on top of that. And from where I sit right now, and I've thought this for a little while now, it's hard to imagine that happening from where I sit.
Agreed.
Let's see here. Next one comes from. I mean, some of the tackle. I mean, he's got to get better tackling for sure, especially out in space. Let's see here. Hi guys, it's Bryce. 2 questions based on our roster as it stands right now. Here's the order of positions I would take in the 2022 draft. Quarterback aside, he has defensive lineman, corner, speedy wide receiver, guard, edge, inside linebacker, safety. Agree with this order? Would you range it differently? Bryce, it's November 17th. I will tell you this. I think guard and a speedy wide receiver definitely need to be near the top of anybody's list.
Yeah, it's just hard to tell without the season being over and free agency, re-signings and all those things. But, I still think probably the right side of the offensive line, guard, maybe tackle. Probably some speed at receiver, a corner, potentially, although I think Sutton Pierre, Norwood could be the guys next season. Strong safety. What happens with Edmonds? Just a lot of questions right now.
There are going to be a lot of holes to fill. That's for sure. And they're probably not going to be able to fill all of them properly via the draft too. So, they need some speed at wide receiver, man. I really think they're probably going to need a guard. I think. I mean, what's going to happen? Trey Turner is probably not going to be passed this year. Finney. I mean, Hassenauer is not the answer. What are you going to do at guard?
Could they re-sign Turner again? I think Tomlin likes Turner a lot. I mean, is it possible he comes back?
I mean, it's always possible. I don't know.
I mean, he's not playing poorly. He's not playing like amazing, but I think they like him a lot, and he's been a really big veteran leader and presence in that room as well.
Okay. Possible, I suppose. Not impossible, but even if you do it, what are you going to do it for? 1 year?
Probably, yeah, probably 1 year, which certainly means you could still draft somebody.
Okay. I would like to see them address it during the draft, I think, more than anything else. Let's see here. Number 2, if the season were to end today, do you think it makes sense for Tomlin and the front office to try to convince Joe Hayden to stay with the team and move to safety? At this stage in his career, I believe he would fit in well in that role. What are your thoughts? I will be absolutely shocked if Joe Hayden moves to safety. I don't think that's a good move anyway when it comes to him. If Joe Hayden can't play corner for the Steelers anymore, at a high level, then I don't think he should be back.
Yeah, I mean, what's he going to play? Strong safety? He doesn't really have the build to play that, even though he's a more physical type of corner. But he's not going to play free safety. So, nope, don't think. Maybe an option for some other team, but not in Pittsburgh.
Walrus Warrior, easy for me to say, an optimistic thought. I've been stuck with an optimistic notion I wanted to get your guys' opinion on. The Steelers don't blow people out and don't get blown out, never having 30 points be scored by either team. Do you guys think these types of ugly battles benefit the inferior team? Toss in a few takeaways, which are relatively unpredictable, and I like our chances to steal a couple we shouldn't down the stretch, especially with divisional games being unpredictable. I think this team might surprise you in the coming weeks. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate all the content. Been listening for about 5 years now. Always look forward to your podcast. Brett, I'm going to tell you this. I think Mike Tomlin should be commended for having his team 5-3-1 right now. That's not going to be a popular take, I don't think, and go over very well. But based on everything that's in my head right now after seeing these first 9 games, I'm a bit shocked they're 5-3-1.
Yeah, I think maybe they're punching above their weight a little bit, but the schedule has helped them out a bit when you're playing Denver and Seattle and Chicago and Detroit. I think to the point, bad teams are more likely to win 14-10 than they are 35-38, 35-30, something like that. So when the score's down and the games are naturally close because the score's down, anything can happen. So, yeah, I think it's a fair point.
Plain and simple, this it's an any given Sunday type situation more than ever in the NFL, I think. And now look, I mean, and this has been it for a while. What's the injury status of some of your stars going into the game? That heavily can impact games. Turnovers heavily impact games. Explosive plays. Right now, the Steelers are not producing explosive plays. They're not producing takeaways. My view on this team right now, and I put it out there in a tweet, kind of tongue in cheek last night, Alex. This team needs 40 explosive plays and 16 takeaways in the final few games, in the final 8 games.
And you asked on Twitter if they can do it.
Right.
And almost felt rhetorical.
I mean, that's where I am on this. You know, call it whatever you want to call it, but that's where I am on this.
Yeah, and by the way, the adjusted, how do you say it? Adjusted net yards
per
difference?
passing attempt, the differential stat right now. There are a lot of teams right in that weird gray area of not even, but not a full 1.0 to the negative there. The Steelers are and the Ravens. Steelers are 0.8 negative, and the Ravens are 0.9 negative. Now, I give the edge to the Ravens there because they had the better offensive number. And I think, I mean, are you surprised as to how bad maybe their defense has been? They've suffered a lot of injuries there. But regardless, those numbers of those two teams, there's no way the Steelers are winning the Super Bowl. And it would take a modern miracle, I think, for the Ravens to win it based on that 7.4 defensive number that they have right now as well, too. You do not want to be negative at this point of the season when it comes to your adjusted net yards per passing attempt differential. And the Steelers are close to being a full point into the negative there when it comes to that. I just don't see how this team, even if this team made the playoffs, maybe not miraculously right now because of the way things set up in the AFC, but if they did make the playoffs, I just don't see how this team wins a game right now. And especially now with your toughest part of your schedule coming up, these 8 games. Look, you gave one away at Detroit, and yeah, it's a tie. I think you count it as a loss, quite honestly. You better steal one back, all right? And you better steal one back this Sunday night against the Chargers. Is it an impossible task? No, I don't think so, especially if they don't have Bosa, and they're not playing their best football right now either. This is a not as good of a Chargers team maybe as I imagined at the start of the season. Make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And as Tomlin said yesterday, last time they went out to LA, they had duck and they won that game. So you find ways to win ugly, and there's still victories.
Justin Brisbane, here's the final one. The team frequently boasts the company line of all in and measuring stick is always the Super Bowl. They seemingly practice what they preach in most areas except for its coaching staff. Routinely one of the smallest staffs in all of football. And the main point I want to make is that for a team that is all in every year, why do they always have mediocre coordinators? Even when there is an opening, we never go after the big name or hot commodity. In-house promotions only work if you have an up-and-comer, and we haven't had many of those lately. Actually, since Tomlin took over, I can't think of any assistant coaches that have been poached. Under Cowher, many assistants went on to be head coaches. This seems overlooked for a team that is all in. They spend to the ceiling of the salary cap on players, but really take the bargain approach to coaching. Coaching and talent should be held in the same regard. What's your thoughts on what Justin has to say? And this is the same fan base that ran Bruce Arians out of town.
Yeah, I get that question from time to time. I mean, just organizationally, the Steelers are very much internal kind of team. That's not a good answer. That's probably going to make anyone feel good about them. I mean, there's just not a lot of turnover in terms of the coordinators in general. I mean, they've only had, Tomlin's had 2 DCs and a couple of OCs, and there were some out-of-house hires there. Todd Haley, for example, for better or for worse. Harold Goodwin, by the way, has kind of risen the ranks a bit there, so that's one guy to talk about. But you're right, Tomlin's tree is pretty bare. But yeah, I mean, just to the point, I get what you're saying. But the Steelers, A, do not have as much turnover as other teams, so less opportunity to get that big name, flashy hire. And then B, they are a very, internal, consistent, promote from within kind of thing, for better or for worse. And for the most part, it has worked out for them in terms of the overall organizational philosophy. Maybe in that regard, it hurts them a little bit, but I think in the overall analysis of this team, promoting from within and kind of being an internal team has worked well for them throughout their franchise history.
Right. Let's see. More on Bush here. Well, I think we beat that horse pretty dead there. All right. I think that's a good stopping point as any, Alex. We're hour 15 into this now?
Yeah, we'll come back for Friday. Planning to have a special guest for Friday's show. Not going to say anything until it's done in the can, as you'd like to say, Dave. But hopefully we'll have a special guest for Friday's show and, of course, talk Chargers and preview that game.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site as well, too. So, Alex, good work this week. We'll get after it again on Friday and get a little bit deeper into previewing the Sunday night game against the Chargers. So, in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.